Part 56. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 551. Chapter 551 I would rather bully others than be bullied. But what comes before personal preference is his responsibility as a son, as a father, and as an elder brother. The Kingyun road of the official career looks beautiful, but in fact there are many corpses on the roadside. He is not sure whether he can go safely and for a long time. But he is willing to try. I have exchanged a lot of medicinal materials and medicinal seeds in the past few days. I am in a hurry to come back today. My second uncle has not loaded the truck. I will ask Zhang Feng to send it back to you tomorrow. Li Lao changed the topic again and told his niece, "You must study hard with divine Dr. Zhang. You can leave everything else behind, but you must be proficient in identifying and administering poisons. Whenever you encounter someone who bullies you in the future, teach them a lesson for small things, and poison them to death for big things. Don't be afraid, if something goes wrong, your second uncle will take care of it for you." It's the same sentence. You have 3 uncles, a father, and 7 brothers. If you don't be arrogant and domineering and bully others at will, others should be lucky. There is no reason for you to be wronged and bullied by others, do you understand? Understood, Jiyan responded loudly, unable to help but giggle as she hugged her second uncle's neck. Fortunately, she is not a real child, otherwise she would have learned bad things long ago if she had been indoctrinated like this all day long. But it is obvious that the second uncle also knows that she is smart and kind, and it is impossible to really take people's lives at will. But the second uncle still said what should be said, just to give her confidence. She would rather bully others than be bullied, because her family will feel bad if she is bullied. She really loves being favored and protected. Second uncle, if being an official is not fun, come home and Fu Niuer will protect you. Fu Niuer will be filial to you when you grow up. Jiyan leaned forward and kissed the second uncle's hair. Li Lao quickly complained, "Second uncle has been running outside all day and his head is dirty. Don't move around." "I don't think my second uncle is dirty, he is the best." Jiyan smiled and flattered him, which made Li Lao grin even more, and his heart felt very hot. Mrs. Li looked for materials in the warehouse and stood under the eaves to look around. When she saw her son and granddaughter coming back from outside, she couldn't help but asked in a funny voice, "You two picked up money outside? You laughed so hard reaching your ears." "Haha, my mother's guess is almost right." Li Lao put his niece on the steps and went to get her clothes, wash her hair and take a bath. When Tao Hongying saw that her daughter and her second brother were having a good time, she couldn't help but sigh in her heart. She thought about her husband and said to her mother-in-law, "I don't know when the 4th child and the Marquis will come back. It's already the Ghost Festival. It's a few days since I left months." Old Mrs. Li was also worried and subconsciously looked at the door of the courtyard and responded, "Who says it's not the case? It stands to reason that it's time to come back." Jiyan didn't want her grandma and mother to be in a bad mood, so she quickly interrupted, "It's my birthday and my adoptive father and dad haven't come back yet, so I won't have any good things to collect. This girl has been obsessed with money all day long." Old Mrs. Li scolded her and hit her granddaughter, "She knows how to remember her birthday." Tao Hongying also joked, "It's still a long time ago, but she remembers it clearly. Mom, can you help me bake a cream cake tomorrow? On my birthday, I want to eat a cream cake. Fu Niuer loves my mother the most, she is the best." Jiyan hugged her mother and acted coquettishly, squirming around in her arms like a worm, which made Tao Hongying dumbfounded. She slapped her daughter twice, but was reluctant to push her out. The other girl's daughter is shy to say a few words of personal affection to her mother, but this is surprising to me. I wish I could stick to her every day, just thinking and loving her when I opened my mouth. She was really disgusting and happy to hear that. Okay, I'll fire up the oven tomorrow and help you bake that cake," I'll keep it so you can eat it on your birthday. Tao Hongying took a bite of her daughter's fat cheek and agreed. As the good news came true, I took my grandma and mother back to the backyard. Mrs. Li and Tao Hongying used the light of the oil lamp to cut cloth, and the good news was just like 3 full beds. It was late at night, and the young and old finally dispersed and went to sleep. Early on the second day, Li Laoer entered the city early. He is going to report to the Ministry of Household Affairs and receive official uniforms and other things. Of course, the main purpose is to let everyone in the Ministry of Households take a look at him and to get acquainted with his future colleagues. Wherever there are people, there are rivers and lakes. Suddenly there was a new member of the Yuan Weilang in the Yamen. It was not a big deal, but it was not a small matter. What's more, this Yuan Weilang also holds the title of Earl and comes from the Li family of Sujintan, which is a bit eye-catching. Fortunately, Li Laoer will be in charge of the relief department from now on, a place that no one else wants to take a second look at. So, everyone can only secretly rejoice in the misfortune, but no one wants to fight for it. Moreover, Baiwan Garden is in Zindu these days, but its reputation is booming. Everyone greeted Li Laoer and asked about Baiwan Garden. Li Laoer took advantage of the situation and invited them to drink tea and enjoy flowers in Baiwan Garden during their rest the day after. Of course everyone agreed to such a good thing, so they treated Li Laoer with a bit of dignity. In the afternoon, Li Laoer reported to the superior officer and went to the relief department. All beginnings are hard. There are more than 700 old, weak, sick, and disabled people in the relief department. Now they have 2 meals of thick porridge in the morning and evening. They have also begun to receive medical treatment and medicine, but this is not enough. At this time, if there is a heavy rain, the efforts of the past 2 days will be in vain. Because every house has heavy rain outside and light rain inside. There is no Kong in the house, and piles of rotten grass are where everyone rests at night. Li Laoer sighed, rolled up his sleeves and started to fight. I won't talk about how Li Laoer started from scratch. I just said that Ji Yin had breakfast and went to study with the miracle Dr. Zhang. He was ordered to dry the medicinal materials and grind the medicine. After working all morning, her little arms and legs were sore from fatigue, so she went home carrying a thick medical book. As a result, as soon as she entered the door, she saw sister-in-law Wenjuan sitting under the eaves, so she ran forward happily and asked, "Second sister-in-law, why are you back? Where is the second brother? Where is the third uncle?" Wenjuan helped her sister-in-law put down the medical book in her hand, and replied with a smile, "Your third uncle is in the academy cafeteria. Your second brother sent me over and hurried back to the restaurant. I am the only idle person at home, and I am greedy for fourth aunt's cooking food, so I came back to stay for a few days." Ji Yin looked at her second sister-in-law with a hint of sadness in her smile. She guessed that the matter couldn't be that simple, but she didn't ask further questions. At lunch, all the stewed vegetables at home were brought to the backyard. Tao Hongying cooked extra porridge, mixed 2 delicious side dishes, and steamed a pot of scallion oil flour rolls. Wenjuan had a good appetite. After eating and drinking, she felt sleepy and yawned all day long. Mrs. Li drove her to the backyard to take a nap. Ji Yin approached her grandma and asked in a low voice, "Grandma, why is my second sister-in-law back? Did she quarrel with my second brother?" No, Mrs. Li saw that her granddaughter's hair was messed up. She took off the silver comb on her head and braided her granddaughter's hair again. She whispered, "Your second brother is an honest man and has a good relationship with your second sister-in-law. How could they quarrel? Something is wrong with your second sister-in-law's family." "Second sister-in-law, what's going on at my mother's side?" Ji Yin asked curiously. "Didn't Mr. Peng just marry a new daughter-in-law? His sleeves are red every day. What else is going on?" End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 552. Chapter 552, Great Harvest, all in one pot. This kid, where did he learn weird things? He dares to say anything, Mrs. Lee said angrily and slapped her granddaughter. Jian stuck out her tongue and quickly admitted her mistake. "Nah, I was wrong. I don't dare to say nonsense anymore." Orange Mrs. Lee pulled back her granddaughter's pigtails and told her, "You are a girl, don't be as glib and talkative as the boys. Next time, I'll tell your mother to spank you." "Hey, I got it," Na Jian quickly started talking. "Na, please tell me, who made my second sister-in-law angry? If my little nephew is hurt, I will go to him to settle the score." Old Mrs. Lee heard it funny, and continued to braid her hair, and continued, "Mr. Peng's newly married wife and the concubine who gave birth to a concubine were noisy all day long. It happened that your second sister-in-law went to the cafeteria and was seen by her stepmother. I took him home for review. I don't know how to explain it. In the end, your second sister-in-law was not a human being inside and outside. Both the stepmother and the concubine blamed her. Your second sister-in-law was so angry that she had a stomachache. It was because your third sister-in-law couldn't wait for someone, so she asked Daz's wife to pick her up. Just found out about this. Daz's wife has a bad mouth and scolded both my concubine and stepmother. Your third uncle was afraid that your second sister-in-law would get angry again in Luoan, so she sent her back to live for a while. Our village is quiet and our family has a large population. It's not much, your mother and I can still take care of the food and drink." Only then did Jian know the whole story, and couldn't help but sigh. "Grandma, you see, it's better for the husband and wife to be as they were before, and the concubine is the spoiler of the family. You have to watch out, my uncle, my father and my brother can't taking a concubine." Tao Hongying came out of the stove and was drinking a bowl of herbal tea while walking. When she heard this, she spit out the tea. She reached out and tapped her daughter, then turned around to find the broomstick. Jian jumped up and ran back to the backyard. He rushed into his house and bolted the door. Tao Hongying was neither angry nor annoyed. She complained to her mother-in-law, "Mom, this girl has been really beaten recently. She really dares to say anything. Her little head is the same, how come she doesn't understand everything?" Old Mrs. Lee coughed twice, wanting to add fuel to the fire, but she didn't want her granddaughter to be beaten, so she could only say, "The child had this kind of problem when he was a child, as if he had a tongue problem. After a few months, it will be fine. Don't do it either." Angry, "Wait until I give Funiu a few words sometime, and she will understand." Tao Hongying's chest was filled with a sigh of relief, but she didn't believe it. Mother-in-law dotes on her children too much, let alone scolding her. It would be nice not to be led into trouble by her daughter. Jian hid for a while and breathed a sigh of relief when he saw that my mother didn't chase him. Perhaps she really wanted to grow up, so she gradually relaxed and always forgot what she was talking about. Be careful in the future, proceed step by step, and slowly let the whole family accept that she is smarter than ordinary children, and treat her as half an adult. For example, my second uncle has accepted it well now and knows how to discuss everything with her. Mammy, he took Shui Yun and also compared the cutting of dresses outside. They also received fabrics a few days ago and planned to make autumn clothes. Jian stuck her head out and whispered, "Mommy, you are busy, I will take a nap first. Remember, when my mother comes over, don't open the door." Grandma he and Shui Yun couldn't help but laugh. Grandma he responded, "Miss, rest assured and go to sleep. When the fourth lady comes over, I said it is not good to spank the child before going to bed. If you want to spank the child, you have to do it at another time." Jian's face collapsed at that time. "Mommy, actually you don't need to add the last sentence." Mother he and Shui Yun both laughed. The days are as calm as water, everyone has their own things to do, and they are full and busy. The jade melons and golden fruits in the melon garden have long been sold out, and even the melon fields in Dawaisha village, Dawangjuang and Zioangjuang have become the tops of middle-aged people's heads, almost bald. The village chief and his fellow villagers were busy pulling up the melon vines, redigging the fields, and planting cabbages and radishes. There were still 2 months before the frost, which was enough time for another harvest of autumn vegetables. After a few more days, the potato seedlings will wither, and it's time to grab the potatoes. Otherwise, potatoes will easily rot in the ground during an autumn rain. On the other hand, the corn is still working hard to slurry, waiting for the autumn wind and the sun to work together to make them more mature and stronger. There is at least another month before harvesting. The orchards on the mountain are now full of fruits. The fist-sized fruits squeezed out the leaves, and some branches were supported with wooden sticks at the bottom to prevent the branches from being broken by the pressure. The fruit on the sunny side is slightly reddish from the sun, which is very pleasing to look at. There was a naughty boy in the village who secretly picked one while the adults were away and took a big bite. The next moment he felt sour and doubtful about his life. Jiyan learned needlework from Hui Niang in the afternoon, and it turned out that the twins were probably teething and had some fever. She didn't want to cause any trouble, so she went home. Seeing crops in the fields on the road, she thought of boiled corn and steamed potatoes, paired with a bowl of chili stew. Such a delicious dinner. So she secretly picked some randomly from the space field and asked Shui Yun to wash the pot and boil water. Boil the tender corn on the bottom, put the grate on the top, cut the potatoes in half, throw the slender eggplants, tender beans and 2 handfuls of green pods on the grate, and make a place in the middle to put an earthenware bowl. Pour half a bowl of farmhouse sauce into the earthenware bowl, beat 3 eggs, a handful of chopped chili peppers and green onions, mix well, and put it into the pot. Fasten the lid of the pot and press it with a large vegetable pile. But the vegetable pile is a little off, and a small broom for washing dishes is placed underneath. Bring the pot to a boil over high heat, and white steam comes out, slowly taking on an indescribable aroma. At this time, Jiyan was squatting next to the stove fire. She only remembered that her mouth was drooling. She did not remember at all the vows she made after destroying a jar of sauce that she would not eat sauce again. Just like a person who loses weight, she has selective amnesia due to delicious food. The others were fine with it. When Juan was pregnant, her nose was most sensitive at this time, and she quickly found her from the backyard. Fu Niur, have you secretly made something delicious again? Wen Juan held her sister-in-law's fleshy hand and couldn't help but ask with a smile. In her mind, she really hoped that the child in her belly would be a fat girl like a sister-in-law. At first glance, the Li family has no shortage of boys. Secondly, the girl is considerate and beautiful, she acts coquettishly and cutely, you can like her however you want. It's a pity that the child is fate. No one can guess whether the child will be a boy or a girl until the time of birth. And given that Lao Li's family is prosperous, I'm afraid that the child in her belly is more likely to be a boy. Alas! Before the good news could be heard, Mrs. Li, Tao Hongying, and Grandma He also came out to have a look. Jiyan smiled and ran to hug her grandma's thigh, and said quickly, "Grandma, I made potatoes and corn, but they were not grown in the fields of our village. They were brought back from Zhenjiazhuang by Dongmei. Let's help taste them first, and then give them some. My sister-in-law has something fresh to eat." Mrs. Li heard it funny and said, "Okay, you can eat whatever you want. Even the people in the fields of our village are not afraid. Just tell the village chief to settle the bill first and the money will be deducted from the dividends at the end of the year." Tao Hongying was about to speak when the rumble of horse hooves suddenly sounded outside the village. Everyone was stunned for a moment, and then ran out in a swarm. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 553. Chapter 553. A flower stuck in cow dung. My father must be back, along with my adoptive father and Uncle Daong. Ji-yin was so happy that she ran towards the entrance of the village as soon as she left the house, followed by the jumping little fox. Fu Niu is back, be careful of being stepped on by a horse. Mrs. Lee called her granddaughter, but unfortunately she couldn't stop her. Sure enough, the horse team ran closer and closer, and they could see it more clearly. More than a dozen riders, covered in dust, were led by Li Laozi. When he got close, he slowed down his horse, then laughed and bent down to pick up the girl and sit in front of him. The little fox also had quick eyes and quick claws. He grabbed the corner of Ji-yin's skirt, got on the horse's back after him, and then squatted on the horse's head. It stared with two black bean eyes, obviously scared to death, and did not dare to let go of its claws, but the fox's face was still full of excitement. Such a cowardly and playful look made everyone at the door of Li's house laugh. "Mom, I'm back," Li Laozi greeted his mother loudly, then jumped off his horse, put his daughter down, knelt down and kowtowed. Get up, Mrs. Li's heart, which had been hanging high for many days, finally dropped. She tried her best to hold back her tears and touched her son's arms and legs before she said with peace of mind, "It'll be good to come back, it'll be good to come back." Tao Hongying turned her back and wiped her tears, then turned around and blamed her husband with red eyes. "I won't be able to catch my shadow when I go out, and I won't be able to send a message to my family." Li Laozi subconsciously scratched the back of his head and smiled naively. "There are barbarians everywhere in Jiangbei, and it is not convenient to send letters." The Li family is used to seeing him like this, but this is the first time they see the soldiers following him. The of death on the battlefield, a born strongman, even the barbarians were frightened when they saw him. Unexpectedly, he turned out to be afraid of his wife when he returned home. The contrast is really great. Some people couldn't help but burst out laughing. Li Laozi turned around and scolded with a smile, "Wei Daniu, if you dare to laugh at me, just wait. After you get married, let's see if you are afraid of Xiao Kui'er." The sturdy man whom he named laughed heartily, "I'm not afraid. My Xiaokui is so gentle." Mrs. Li knew that these were brothers who had been with her son through life and death, so she quickly asked, "Fourth brother, where is Mr. Ho, and where is Daong?" "Don't worry, mother, Mr. Ho and Daong are also fine. Mr. Ho has gone to Zindu, but Daong is worried, so he went with him and will be back tomorrow," Li Laozi quickly replied. "Well." Old Mrs. Li quickly asked Shui Ling to go to the backyard to report the news to Hui Niang, so that she wouldn't worry about it. He then arranged for his son to take these soldiers to the marquis's yard next door to wash their clothes, but there were not so many clean clothes at home for them to change into. But this is not a big problem. The village chief and Lu Biatu, who arrived later, helped solve the problem with a few words. All the men in the village can just go home and bring their sweaters. I have to say that everyone in the new village respects and loves the marquis and these war heroes. When the women in each house heard why the men wanted clothes, they not only found clean clothes and pants, but also brought new middle coats and even new shoes and socks. They also asked the men to bring back the dirty clothes, shoes, and socks that the soldiers had changed into. They quickly washed them and dried them overnight. Tao Hongying even called Aunt He, Shui Yun and Shui Ling to prepare meals urgently. Wen Juan also wanted to help, but was kicked back by Mrs. Li. It was too late to stew meat at this time. Tao Hongying simply took out all the dry noodles at home, opened a jar of meat sauce, cut cucumber shreds, coriander, and chopped green onion to make noodles with fried sauce. One person prepared 3 large bowls. Tao Hongying was still worried that she would not have enough to eat, so she scooped out half a basin of fine flour, added eggs, green onions, pepper and salt, stirred it into a batter, and baked a large stack of egg pancakes. The soldiers were washed and fragrant, put on clean clothes and shoes, and started eating with bowls of noodles. The egg pancake is as big as a plate, rolled up into a tube, and eaten in 2 bites. In the end, not to mention that the bread was all eaten, the meat sauce was gone, and even the noodle soup was all consumed. If it weren't for all the soldiers burping like this and walking around the courtyard with their bellies in their hands, Tao Hongying would really suspect that the food was undercooked. Jiyan sat on his father's shoulder, smiling as he listened to his father bragging to his brothers, "How about my wife's cooking? Huh, I've told you so many times, but you don't believe it? Do you believe it now?" All the soldiers were envious and jealous. Wei Danio took the lead and laughed loudly, "I believe it, of course I believe it. It's a pity that my sister-in-law stuck a flower in the cow dung. Boy, look for a beating." Li Laosi chased Wei Danio away, and the two of them ran around the yard. Jiyan was afraid of falling off, so he grabbed his father's hair and laughed along with him. The little fox didn't understand what was happening, but it was a good joiner in the fun. It jumped up and down, panting from exhaustion. The soldiers discovered that the little fox had 3 tails. They guessed that the Marquis had gone up the mountain to hunt the one with his own hands, and they also teased it for a long time. Old Mrs. Lee was sitting under the eaves of the veranda, listening to the overwhelming laughter in the yard next door, and she was so happy that she couldn't open her mouth from ear to ear. When the children were young, life was difficult. She really wished that the children would grow up in an instant and help her support the family and support the Lee family. Now that her sons are married and have their own careers, and even her grandchildren have gone to school, she feels that everything in the house is empty. In such a huge courtyard, there were only her daughter-in-law, and her granddaughter, so it was extremely quiet. "It's okay now, my son is back, but it's going to be lively for a while." Soon, the big Kong in the wing room of the family was warmed up. Li Laosi put his brothers to rest, and then carried his daughter back to his yard. The one pot from the farm prepared by Jiyan earlier was already cooked, so Tao Hongying temporarily added a few more dishes, leaving the village chief and Lu Biatu to eat together. To avoid misunderstanding, Mrs. Li told them personally that the corn and potatoes came from Zhenjiazhuang. After hearing this, the village chief waved his hands anxiously and said, "Old madam, the entire broken gold beach is Fu Niuer's fiefdom. She can eat whatever she wants. This is what she should do. There will be no one in the village. Say something." "That can't be done. We agreed at the beginning that we would all join in the business and work together and harvest together. We can't break the agreement just because Fu Niuer became the princess," old Mrs. Li insisted. She continued, "Besides, there are also hard-working people in Zhenjiazhuang. Whatever we have in our village, we have over there. Fu Niuer is often sent here in big and small cars. How big is Fu Niuer's belly? I can't even finish it." Jiyan also stood up, smiled and brought half a stick of boiled corn to the village chief. "Grandpa village chief, try it, this is delicious to chew." Okay, the village chief carefully picked up the corn and was a little excited. "I'm so blessed, Tianwu doesn't know how many people have never tasted it, but I'm about to eat it." Everyone laughed and started to divide the remaining boiled corn. At this time of year, the corn kernels have not yet been completely pulped and are still fresh and tender. These dozen sticks were grown in Jiyan space. Their quality was much better than ordinary ones. They tasted sweet, soft, glutinous, sticky, and fragrant. Everyone was surprised and liked them. "Well, this corn tastes so good when cooked. Yeah, I thought it was like sorghum, grinding the particles into powder. You can also grind it into flour, but it's really good to eat it tender at this time. The elderly and children can eat it, it's really a good thing." End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 554. Chapter 554, A Worthless Thing. Ji-yin hugged the boiled corn and ate it happily. When she saw the yellow steamed potatoes right in front of her eyes, some of the parts near the edge of the pot were half burnt, she hurriedly finished the last bite of the corn and then went to get the potatoes. As a result, she chewed the last bite a little too hard, and her mouth hurt so much that she screamed and jumped up. Everyone was startled and wanted to ask what happened to her. Ji-yin opened his mouth and spit out a few corn kernels, with a small deciduous tooth mixed in the middle. It turns out that one of her lower front teeth was laid off. Oh, Fu-niu lost her teeth. Haha, the little girl has grown up and started to change her teeth. The little gap-toothed child is so cute. This tooth had not moved much before, but now it fell out suddenly, and there was some blood on the broken part. Everyone was afraid of the good news and tried to tease her. Ji-yin gritted her teeth and was really dumbfounded. When she lost her front teeth in her previous life, she didn't know why, but she didn't grow new teeth for some reason. However, she was often laughed at by children of the same age. As a human being again, we have to experience such embarrassing moments as losing teeth. Li Laozi felt sorry for his daughter, but he couldn't bear to let her feel sad. He hugged her directly, stepped out of the door with a small tooth as big as a soybean, and then held his daughter up and asked her to throw the tooth onto the roof. At the end, he smiled and coaxed his daughter, "Throw your lower teeth on the roof, Fu-niu's new teeth will grow out soon." "Well, thank you, Dad," Fu-niu smiled habitually with her teeth bared, but the cold wind coming in through the holes in her teeth reminded her of the fact that she had become toothless, so she quickly reached out to cover her mouth. Everyone laughed unkindly. Ji-yin was helpless at being laughed at, so she simply let go, ran to grab half of the steamed potatoes, smeared them with chili and stewed them, and ate them. The soft and glutinous steamed potatoes are slightly salty and spicy, which is unexpectedly suitable for her weak teeth. Unfortunately, I only took 2 bites before my wife snatched it away. Tao Hongying stuffed her daughter's half-eaten potatoes into her mouth and ate them in 2 or 3 bites. Then she gave her daughter a new one without chili peppers and said, "Chili peppers are hot and hot. You just lost a tooth, so you can't eat them. Be careful not to grow new teeth in the future." This threat pierced Ji-yin's heart. No matter how greedy she was, she could only be obedient. Everyone was chatting and eating and drinking, and asked Li Laozi about the situation in Jiangbei. Li Laozi picked out some things he could talk about and briefly talked about them. Everyone couldn't help but feel a little sad when they thought of their hometown. In fact, Li Laozi didn't say anything. They also knew that no matter how good the city was, it would not be left intact if it fell into the hands of the barbarians. There are also those people who did not move to the south of the Yangtze River in time. It is better to be killed directly by the barbarians, at least they will be happy. But those who were imprisoned as slaves and now have no choice but to live or die are the worst offenders. After eating, everyone went back to rest with heavy hearts. Tao Hongying wanted to help clean up the kitchen, but Mrs. Li pushed her back to the room early. The couple have been separated for so long, it's time for them to get intimate, and maybe they can give Ji-yin a younger brother. Not to mention how happy the Li family was because of Li Laozi's return. They only said that the Marquis entered the new capital and rushed directly to the palace. He had been away for a few months, and Jiangbei was the territory of barbarians. Communication with Jiangnan was inconvenient, so he really accumulated a lot of things. The emperor was also looking forward to him. When he saw him about to kneel when he entered the door, he helped him up and said, "Cousin, you are back. How was this expedition? Are you injured?" "Thanks to the emperor, I have some minor injuries but no major injuries," the Marquis smiled and responded. The emperor was worried and immediately called the imperial doctor. The imperial doctor originally thought there was something wrong with the emperor's dragon body and was frightened to death. However, he was relieved when he found out that he was checking the body of Marquis Inting. After working for a long time, the imperial doctor knelt down and said, "Your Majesty, there are no major injuries on the Marquis's body. The few minor wounds were treated well, so that the root cause of the disease will not be too serious. But Lord Marquis is away on war. He cannot eat 3 meals on time and sleeps less. Therefore, he suffers from severe loss of energy and blood. It is best to keep him healthy for a while, otherwise it will affect his lifespan." The emperor became cold-faced at that time, and immediately ordered the imperial physician, "Prescribe the tonic, and prescribe it immediately. The necessary medicinal materials will be obtained from the inner treasury, and we must restore the body of the Marquis." "Yes, Your Majesty." The imperial doctor quickly withdrew. The chief was worried about the young doing his errands, so he went to write the prescription and get the medicinal materials. In the imperial study room, the emperor took the Marquis to sit opposite him, poured tea for the Marquis with his own hands, and said, "Cousin, thank you for your hard work. Without you, there would be no peace in Jiangnan today." "Your Majesty, don't say that. The soldiers are all loyal and brave. I am just leading them," the Marquis said modestly, and then said, "In this expedition, as many as 3,000 barbarians were killed. Before the spring of next year, the barbarians will not be able to fight again. There is no time left to invade, so we can rest assured about harvesting and spending the winter." Okay, the emperor was extremely happy. There will be a good harvest of corn and potatoes soon. The harvest will be enough to make seeds next year. Planting in Jiangnan will be fully promoted. When the national treasury is abundant and enough food has been stored, we can launch a massive counterattack and regain Jiangbei. The Marquis nodded and was about to speak when a commotion came from outside the hall door. The emperor frowned and asked loudly, "What happened?" Immediately, a young came in from outside and reported with a troubled expression, back to the emperor, it was the third princess who made the tonic soup with her own hands and wanted to give it to the emperor. "The servant said that you and the Marquis would discuss important matters again, but the princess did not believe it." Before he could finish speaking, the third princess had already walked in with a tray. When she saw the Marquis sitting drinking tea, her face suddenly turned pale and she dropped the tray in her hand. During this period, she was moved out of Cunning Palace and lived alone. Without the protection of her mother and the strict upbringing of her nanny, it was really miserable. Today, I finally took advantage of the opportunity of learning how to cook and made a soup. I thought about serving it to my father, so that I could ask him to let her move back to Cunning Palace. How could I have imagined that I would meet Marquis Inting? Even the rough eunuchs and eunuchs who sweep the floors in the palace know that Marquis Inting is a murderer. Hearing that he was fighting in Jiangbei, he was so hungry that he roasted the barbarians like pheasants and ate them. She had just bullied Princess Kangol. Did Marquis Inting come to settle a score with her? Ah, help! The third princess became more and more frightened as she thought about it. She screamed and ran away. Left behind was a frightened little eunuch, the Marquis who frowned in confusion, and the emperor who had a dark face. The little finally stopped being stupid and quickly picked up the tray and broken dishes, then retreated. The Marquis coughed twice and said to the emperor, "Am I too murderous?" and scared the princess. The emperor knew very well what this unsatisfactory daughter was afraid of, but he couldn't say it, so he said, "Don't pay attention to her, she is useless." Just at this time, the chief rushed back. When he saw the mess in the room, he really scolded the little eunuchs half to death, but he still smiled and stepped forward to report, "Your Majesty, the prescription has been written and the medicinal materials are ready. Mr. I ordered everyone to be sent to the home mansion." The emperor nodded and ordered, "Tell the imperial kitchen to cook more delicious dishes that the Marquis likes to eat." "Yes, Your Majesty," the chief responded, and called the young eunuchs to tidy up the house quickly and then closed the door. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 555. Chapter 555, The Master leads you in, learning is personal. Of course someone would run to the imperial kitchen to deliver the message, and the chief stood at the door, personally serving the emperor and the marquis. I really didn't dare to leave it to those unreliable little eunuchs anymore. The emperor and the marquis continued to talk about business until dinner was served. After finishing the meal in 2 bites, the marquis resigned when he saw that the palace was closed. The emperor thought for a while and motioned to the chief to send it off. The chief understood this and smiled to guide the marquis to the palace gate. The marquis casually chatted with the chief and asked, "How many months have I been away from Jiangnan? How about the broken gold beach? The jade melon garden should be open now. Have you presented melons to the emperor?" The head laughed awkwardly and replied, "Don't worry, Lord Marquis, broken gold beach is fine. A few days ago, Uncle Li and the princess brought the village chief to the palace to offer melons in person. The emperor liked the princess very much and gave the princess a birthday gift in advance. The queen also selected a lot of fabric jewelry and sent it to Broken Gold Beach." "Did you give the princess a birthday gift in advance?" The marquis caught the key point in the eunuch's words and asked, "Why should I give you a gift in advance?" The head laughed dryly and felt uneasy, but he still said bravely, "Well, the princess and the third princess played for a while, which was not very pleasant. The empress was anxious and made the princess feel a little wronged. The emperor was very distressed, so he gave the princess his birthday gift in advance. However, the princess was very happy and went out of the palace wearing new clothes and jewelry." Mr. Ho looked calm, responded, and said no more. This makes the chief feel even more unsure. The emperor finally waited for the chief to come back, and then asked, "Did my cousin ask you?" The chief bent down and replied, "Yes, your majesty." The marquis asked if the Li family had come to the palace to offer melons. The old slave said that the princess was also here, and you had given her a birthday gift in advance. The marquis is really keen. When he asked why he was rewarded in advance, the old slave said that the princess and the princess were not having a good time playing together, and the princess was a little wronged. The emperor rarely made a sad face and sighed, "My cousin is the most vindictive. He will definitely remain calm and think of a way before taking action. When I was an unpopular prince, I was once pushed into a lotus pond. When my cousin found out, he planned to strip the culprit naked and throw him in. It was still winter, and the man almost froze to death. Now, he treats Fu Niu as an eyeball. I'm afraid this will not be a good thing." Hearing these words, the chief found that instead of blaming one of the Xinting house, the emperor was a little indulgent. He boldly tried to say, "Don't worry, your majesty, the marquis will not care about a child like the third princess." The implication is that if the marquis wants to vent his anger on the princess, he will only target the queen and the Wu family. The emperor's eyes lit up and he laughed. The third princess is his biological child. No matter how stupid he is, he cannot help but protect her. But with regard to the queen and the Wu family, his patience is about to run out, so it's just right for someone to come forward and sort it out. Prepare water for bathing. The emperor has figured it out and doesn't have to worry anymore. He just does what he needs to do. Zinken, the backyard of the Li family. Jiyan is also very discerning. She didn't disturb her parents' reunion. She went back to her room early, saying she went to bed early, but actually she started studying hard when she entered the space. During this period of time, she often visited the small courtyard of Dr. Zhang, but the old man was a good doctor, but not a good master. A hammer in the east and a stick in the west. They taught her a lot of things, but it was too messy. Fortunately, the old man had to think about some weird prescription recently, and he didn't want her to be around to avoid accidental injury, so he gave her a medical book, hoping to make her quiet for a while, which was also a bit of a test. Therefore, Ji-Yin planned to memorize the medical books as soon as possible and finish all the self-study skills to impress the old man and no longer treat her as an ordinary child. For the strong, weakness can certainly arouse their sympathy, but it is not easy for them to give everything they have. Ji-Yin plans to use this medical book as a stepping stone to completely open the door of Dr. Zhang's medical skills. In addition, Ji-Yin also needs to find time to read and practice calligraphy, and also learn Tianwu's general accounting method, so that he can understand the account books. Even the abacus mental arithmetic textbook she learned as a child in her previous life was dug out by her, and she has been studying and practicing on her own. Children don't have any personality. In their previous lives, they took elementary classes and then threw them aside. Fortunately, she bought both intermediate and advanced textbooks, otherwise she would regret it now. Occasionally when he gets tired from studying, Ji-Yin skips rope to try to build up his physical strength, hoping that his chubby little body will become more flexible. Of course the hope is good, but I don't know whether it can be realized. So, when outsiders see her being lazy and gluttonous every day, it seems that she is not much different from before. Actually, she had already taken the initiative to roll herself up in the small courtyard of an unknown space. It was an ordinary night in the eyes of outsiders, but the good news was extremely fulfilling. I had a good sleep, and when I went out again, it was bright outside. Li Laozi had a good night's sleep and was really refreshed. After having dinner early in the morning, he took the soldiers next door to wander around the village. The village chief happened to meet them and led a group of people to the melon field. Previously, large tracts of jade melons and golden fruits had been sold out. But the village chief deliberately set aside a few ridges of land in the spring and delayed planting 100 or so melon vines for half a month. Originally, I was preparing for Mr. Ho and others to miss the opening of the garden and still have melons to eat when they came back. Unexpectedly, it will come in handy today. 7 or 8 round jade melons were picked and chopped open with a hatchet. The soldiers each hugged a piece and ate it. They were all crazy with joy. This is the jade melon, I heard that the emperor likes to eat it. Woo, this stuff is so sweet, it really quenches our thirst, Li Yong always brags to us, and I thought he was telling lies, but I didn't expect it to be true. I heard that a melon can be exchanged for a silver coin. How much silver have we spent? Don't want to eat it, give it to me, because I haven't eaten enough yet. The soldiers were joking while eating, and occasionally quarreling, but they all held the melon pieces tightly in their hands, not to mention dropping them on the ground. Not even a drop of juice leaked out. Some people even ate the rind. The village chief clicked his pipe and pot, smiling as he watched the men laugh, and the wrinkles on his face gathered into a flower, as if he had seen him when he was young. Seeing a soldier eating the melon peel, he quickly stopped him and said, "Stop eating, little brother, there are still melons left. I will pick them for you again." "No, no need, uncle." Although the soldiers looked rough, they were thoughtful and waved their hands to refuse. Someone said, "Uncle, let's just eat fresh food, and leave the rest for the marquis. I estimate that the marquis will be back at noon." The village chief gave up and led the soldiers to play in the orchard. Li Laozi took the opportunity to go back home, found his mother and said, "Mother, Wei Dainio is going home to get married. My brothers and I are going to join in the fun. Please prepare a gift for me. This guy is a fool. He is not afraid of death and is very loyal. Thanks to him for saving me during this expedition, otherwise I might have come back injured." End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 556. Chapter 556, Gratitude and Guilt from Tao Hongying. What? Why didn't you tell me earlier? Old Mrs. Li said anxiously. This is a lifesaver. If I had known earlier, I would have treated him well. Is his home close to him? When will he get married? Li Laozi was not angry even after being scolded, and replied with a smile, his home is 100 miles away. We will get married in 3 days. We will leave after lunch. We should arrive at his home just in time. In such a hurry, Mrs. Li immediately started thinking, there was a piece of red brocade at home, but I can't take it anymore. I'm afraid the woman has already sewn her wedding dress. It's better to prepare a few more pieces of good fabric and jewelry. It's best to send a complete set. As she spoke, she called Auntie to find her granddaughter, because it was too late to go to the city to buy something at this time. Most of the rewards sent by the queen were distributed to the villagers, and some were kept at home. In the past few days, Wen Juan came over and cut the fine cotton cloth to make clothes and bedding for the children. At present, there are only a few pieces of expensive yun brocade in the warehouse, which are not suitable for ordinary people like the Wei family to wear. There is still a lot of coarse cloth, so it can't be used as a gift. So, I can only ask the fat girl for help. Jian is cooking porridge in the kitchen, shrimp porridge. She thought that when her adoptive father came back from the city, he would be able to eat something nutritious and delicious. Suddenly she heard Grandma calling her, and Jian entered the house. As a result, Grandma came up and gave her 100 taels of silver. She was shocked and asked, Grandma, why did you give me the money? Of course I'm buying something from you. Old Mrs. Li pulled her granddaughter away, told the story angrily and distressedly, and finally scolded her son, you said your dad only talked about such a big thing. If the Wei family hadn't held a happy event, there was a need to pay tribute, but he still wanted to keep it a secret. It's too late to buy things at home. I'll give you these 100 taels. You can quickly help Grandma find some good materials in your box and a set of jewelry. Jian then realized what had happened. How could she collect Grandma's money? She pushed it back firmly, then ran to the backyard and quickly got the things. Jian prepared 4 pieces of fine cotton cloth, all in bright colors, such as Kixia, Kinfei, willow green and silver red, which are very suitable for making dresses for newlyweds. Finally, there is a set of silver-tipped jewelry, including hairpins, bracelets, earrings, etc., all available. This is the reward that the queen sent last time. Now it is given to the bride of the Wei family, which will add more luster to the marriage. It's not that Jian is stingy and refuses to give the Wei family's new daughter-in-law gold or gem jewelry. After all, in her heart, her father's life is worth all the treasures in the world. But the Wei family is just an ordinary farmhouse, and Wei Erniu is not often at home. Gold and precious stones are too eye-catching and are easily coveted. This set of silver jewelry is exquisite and unique. The bride will definitely like it. Mrs. Li, Tao Hongying, and others saw it and were very satisfied. Mrs. Li hugged her granddaughter and said with joy and emotion, Grandma will come to the city in a few days and take you to the Xiaozhuang Silver Building to make up for you. It just so happens that the warehouse at home needs to add some things, so as not to be anxious when something happens. Panic. Grandma's Fu Niu has grown up so much and is so considerate in everything she does. I'm afraid there is no brat in Tianwu who can be worthy of my granddaughter. Tao Hongying was afraid that her daughter would be proud of her tale, so she quickly answered, Mom, how many years will it be? It's too early to say this. Let's add something more. It's just cloth and jewelry, it's still too thin. Okay, the fabrics are all fine cloth. Although they are affordable, they are not decent enough. Let's add 2 pieces of satin. In addition, I will give you 50 taels of silver for pressing the box. Mrs. Li made up her mind. Tao Hongying went to make arrangements immediately. The satin was taken from the family storehouse, but for the money, she insisted on using her wages from making private dishes. Just thinking about how her husband was almost injured, she felt extremely grateful to Wei Erniu, and even felt a little guilty towards Xiaokui'er, whom she had never met. It was good luck that Wei Erniu rescued Li Laozi and was safe. If Wei Erniu is injured or dies, Xiaokui's life will be over. Old Mrs. Li understood her daughter-in-law's thoughts, so she didn't fight for it. Not only that, Tao Hongying led her daughter into the kitchen and asked her for the first time to support more good dishes and ingredients. She planned to make a few tables of wine and food to thank her benefactors. Jiyan felt the same way. She didn't even dare to think about what would happen to her family if something happened to her father. As a result, all kinds of fresh vegetables, baskets of eggs, and previously stored seafood were moved out of the space, and even the rabbit family began to reduce their burden in large quantities. Mami He, Shui Ling, Shui Yun and Dong Mei all came to help, but they were still a little short of resources. Fortunately, Huanayang, sister-in-law Lu, and several other women in the village came to visit because they were worried about the extra soldiers in the Li family, so they directly joined the army of cooks. Wei Erniu and his brothers came down from the mountain. Everyone's teeth were sore, and then they found that the lunch was so rich, and they regretted it so much that their intestines turned blue. Old Mrs. Li saw them grimacing, gritted their teeth, and couldn't help but smile, so she hurriedly went to the warehouse and brought out a bunch of wild walnuts. This was harvested in the autumn of last year. Life at home was easy, and the children didn't care about these little snacks, so they are still here today. At this time, Mrs. Li took a small hammer and stood next to the millstone, hammering one at a time to crack the wild walnuts. The soldiers grabbed them and picked out the walnut kernels to chew. Mrs. Li smiled and told her, "Chew slowly, carefully, and don't rush. Soon your teeth will be strong. Next time you see sour fruit, don't be greedy." The soldiers all blushed with laughter and scratched the backs of their heads, each one looking stupider than the other. They have been away from home for many years and are no longer naughty boys. But they just saw the fruit on the mountain and still couldn't hold it back. They ate a few in a row and their teeth were full. When the last dish was brought to the table, the soldiers were delighted to find that their teeth could feel it, so they swarmed to the table, ready to feast. At this time, Mr. Ho and Li Yong finally came back. Everyone was so happy that they went out together. The villagers also rushed over after hearing the news and greeted him warmly. "The Marquis is back, the Marquis is back. How long can the Marquis stay at home this time? You can take a good rest for a few months. You have worked the battle." Mr. Ho smiled and nodded with the villagers, exchanged a few brief greetings, and then turned to enter the yard, when he found Jiyan hiding behind Mrs. Li, leaving only a white and fat little face. He bent down and stretched out his hands, shouting, "What's wrong with Fu Niuer? Don't you recognize your foster father?" Jiyan hesitated for a moment, then ran over, took the hand of her adoptive father, and shouted with a smile, "Father." Mr. Ho was stunned for a moment, then burst into laughter. Jiyan quickly reached out and covered her mouth, but everyone else could see clearly and couldn't help laughing. Jiyan was shy, turned around and was about to run away, but the Marquis picked her up and put her on his shoulders. "Don't be afraid, Fu Niuer is a grown-up child, and losing her teeth is a good thing." Master Ho comforted the fat girl, but he could not suppress his raised face. The villagers chatted for a few words and then went back, but the village chief, Lu Biatu, Huanayang, Aunt Wu, and sister-in-law Lu all stayed for dinner. The other women who were helping refused to stay, so Tao Hongying brought a bowl of food to each of them. "After all, I delayed others from making lunch, so I went back to cook some porridge and heat up some steamed buns. This bowl of food is enough for the family." Soon, everyone was seated in a lively manner. Mr. Ho chatted with old Mrs. Li for a while, then played the good news and followed old Mrs. Li to the house for dinner. The sun is setting in the west, and the large area of shade in front of the west wing is suitable for 3 tables, which is the world of men. The drinks Li Jiabi ordered were good, but no one really drank much today. Li Yong was thinking about his wife and child, so he went to hold the child after eating and drinking. Li Laozi and Wei Erniu are a few of them. They have to rush to Wei's house soon, so they don't dare to drink more. Mr. Ho doesn't drink much wine on weekdays. Only the village chief and Lu Biatu, accompanied by Li Laoer, drank a few bowls. Today is the court meeting. Li Laoer was surprised to see the marquis in the court hall. After the court meeting was over, he came back with us. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 557. Chapter 557 War is cruel. The soldiers can fill their stomachs on weekdays, but it would be nice to have a toothpaste once in a while. This is the first time for almost everyone to encounter such a delicious meal like today. They ate with open cheeks and enjoyed it. Occasionally their mouths were free and they would praise it non-stop. Sister-in-law is so amazing, and her craftsmanship is so good. That's right, the imperial chef is probably only at this level. Li Laozi was extremely proud. My wife's ancestors were royal chefs and cyclamen in the city, do you know that? That's my eldest brother's restaurant. My wife cooks private dishes there. There is only one table every 5 days. All the guests who made reservations have been booked until after the new year. Everyone couldn't see how he was showing off, and they were all brothers in life and death, so they didn't have to worry about anything and just started complaining. How many times have you said it? We all know it by heart. That's right, my sister-in-law is the most powerful. What does that have to do with you? Huh, that's right, we thank sister-in-law, but we don't want to thank you, Wei Erniu also added naively, which made Li Lao see the chicken leg from his hand and eat it in one bite. Everybody was talking and laughing, and the lively courtyard was like a pot boiling. The village chief uncle couldn't help but sigh, we were just like these boys when we were young. At that time, old Zhao was the toughest. We wanted to beat him up every day. Now, he is really old. Uncle is not old. If nothing else, our village is counting on him to help us. Li Laoer quickly changed the topic and asked about trivial matters in the village. Uncle, we have almost bought the stone and wood. Isn't it time to build a new house for the village boy? Li Laoer asked while pouring wine for the village chief uncle. The village chief nodded and replied, Uncle, if you are not coming back today, I want to ask you to tell me something. There are hundreds of guests in the hot spring valley every day, and they have to pass through the village when entering or leaving. This is a bit uncomfortable. In case that guest has evil intentions, we really can't take precautions. Let's see if we can open another road, bypass our village, and go directly to the hot spring valley. Whenever a boy in our village gets married again, we will arrange to build a new house at the intersection beside the archway. In this way, whether someone comes to visit or looking for trouble, they will not rush directly to the door of the house and someone will stop them first. Stop it, right? These words reminded Li Laoer that the road leading to the hot spring valley passed through the village and there were indeed hidden dangers. What happens in the village is not very secretive from the eyes of outsiders, and it is easy for others to take advantage of it. Furthermore, the young men of each family are getting married, and the town houses are not originally spacious, but they will become even narrower after building wing rooms. When several generations are crowded together, conflicts are inevitable and it is easy to cause quarrels and disagreements. It would be a really good idea to assign young people to the intersections and build a small village where they can guard the intersections or the melon fields. Uncle is right. After dinner, let's go for a walk to the intersection to see if there is a suitable place to build a house. Li Laoer agreed, making the village chief smile and nod his head. Soon, everyone had enough to eat and drink, and it was time to part ways. Li Yong also wanted to go to Wei's house for a wedding banquet, but firstly he had just arrived home a while ago, and secondly the child still had a low fever that had not gone away, so he was worried. So he asked Madame Hui to go home and get 2 pieces of cloth, plus a silver ingot as his gift, and asked Li Laozi to take it with her. The soldiers mounted their horses one after another, and the things prepared by the Li family were properly packed into baskets and distributed to a few soldiers who acted steadily, and they set off. Tao Hongying led people to clean up the tables, chairs, bowls, and chopsticks. Li Laoer and Mrs. Li followed the village chief to the archway to look at the terrain. Jiyan, of course, pulled his adoptive father's sleeves and skipped to the next door to whisper. The shrimp porridge she had cooked for most of the morning was also brought to her. There were many people at the banquet, but none of them ate much. At this moment, the father and daughter were sitting under the eaves, chatting, and drinking porridge slowly. They were both comfortable and happy. Fu Niuer, your second uncle said that you have recently been studying with divine Dr. Zhang, Mr. Ho asked. Jiyan thought for a while, and she probably couldn't hide the incident in the palace from her adoptive father. She didn't want to hide it either, so she said, yes, before, I just wanted to identify the medicinal materials with Grandpa Zhang. I want to try growing medicinal materials, especially it is the main medicinal material used in hemostatic medicine. Grandpa Zhang was free at that time and taught me a lot of tricks. I happened to be delivering melons to the palace, and the third princess bullied me, so I pricked the acupuncture point on the sole of her foot. It hurt her like a pig. After I came back, I told my second uncle, who persuaded my grandma to let me learn more from Grandpa Zhang. Grandpa Zhang also promised to teach me, but it turned out that he wanted to study some weird prescription again, and he thought I wasted my time, so he threw it away. A medical book asked me to memorize. Jiyan was a little frustrated, pouted, and complained, this old man is really unethical. He ate so many good things from our house and asked my second uncle to build a yard for him, and then he thought it was troublesome to teach his disciples. The Marquis heard this funny, rubbed her hair, gave her the shrimps in his bowl, and said, I will go to Zindu with me tomorrow for a day trip. You don't have to worry about Dr. Zhang. My foster father has a way to help him in the future. I will treat you as an ancestor. He will teach you whatever you want to learn. If you don't want to learn, he will chase you and beg you to learn. Seriously, Jiyan's eyes were bright and she bared her missing teeth as she shouted with a smile, my foster father is so awesome. Eat quickly. After eating, go back and look for some nice clothes and jewelry. Dress up and go to the city with your adoptive father tomorrow. In addition, you haven't taken care of the business of the home mansion for a long time. Please sort out the account books and collect the money. Bring it to me. There was a dark color in Mr. Ho's eyes. He drank up the porridge in his hand, put down the bowl, and said, of the soldiers who went out with me this time, more than 500 were killed, 200 were seriously injured, and more than 600 were slightly injured. The national treasury is empty, and there will not be much money for pensions. I want to supplement some privately. Jiyan's heart tightened, and the porridge in his mouth suddenly didn't taste fresh or fragrant. It's not that she feels sorry for Yinzi, but she can't help but feel sad. She was very happy when her adoptive father and father returned victorious. But for the sake of victory, many people still stayed on the land of Jiangbei, or became disabled people like Grandpa Zhao and others. War is always cruel, and there is nothing beautiful about it. Father, my second uncle's garden was almost destroyed by bad guys before, and I have been looking for some nursing homes if there are suitable ones among the wounded soldiers this time. Please help my second uncle choose a few. There is also the uncle and his fleet that go south. They often encounter water bandits and need protection. The uncle also wants to buy a yard in Quanzhou so that he can take care of the family business. He must also be short of manpower. If it doesn't work out, we can keep some more people at Zhenjiazhuang in a year or two. I will have a lot of work that needs help from Zhenjiazhuang, and we all need manpower. The good news was said in a bit of haste, as I wished I could have all the wounded soldiers settled in a moment. I didn't want these heroes who shed their blood and sacrificed their lives for the country to shed tears anymore because they had no support for their lives. Mr. Ho smiled after hearing this. The heaviness in his heart slowly disappeared due to the fat girl's eagerness. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 558. Chapter 558, Let Your Adoptive Father Take It Out on You. Today in the court, the household ministers were shouting that they had no money, the emperor was in trouble, and most of the courtiers were watching the fun, which really chilled him. But equally, there are people like Fat Girl in Tianwu. Not everyone is indifferent to their sacrifices, and not everyone takes them for granted. He gently raised his hand, rubbed the fat girl's hair, and said softly, "Fu Niuer, do you know that my adoptive father has always thought that you are a little fairy from the sky who has come down to earth?" Jiyan was stunned for a moment, and then immediately covered her mouth. With her eyes rolling, she carefully approached her adoptive father and asked in a low voice, "Father, how did you know? This is a secret. You can't tell anyone." "Ha ha ha," Mr. Ho laughed loudly, stretched out his hand to pinch the fat girl's armpits, and hugged her around the courtyard. "Our Fu Niuer is a little fairy, and there is no one in the world who is kinder and smarter than Fu Niuer. It's time for the whole world to know that the child is pregnant." In the yard next door, Tao Hongying had just come out of the kitchen and was about to ask where her daughter had gone. When she heard the laughter from the Ye family, she knew it without guessing. The Marquis is back, and Fu Niuer has someone to support her, so she has to be lazy and naughty again. Tao Hongying was a little discouraged, and she didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Even though she gave birth to a daughter, every time she wanted to discipline her, a group of people would come out to block her. "Fortunately, my daughter has a lot of minor problems but no major ones, otherwise she would really have raised a dandy girl." He Yan washed his hands and washed his hands. When he heard this, he persuaded, Mrs. the lady and Hoye are close, and they finally hope that Hoye will come back and play more for a while. "Old slave, look at me, the young lady seems to have lost weight recently. I wonder if she is too tired from studying and learning." "Have you lost weight? Why didn't I see it?" Tao Hongying's newly established heart of a strict mother was immediately shattered. "Is it under my nose every day? I didn't notice that Fu Niuer was tired and thin." She quickly called Shui Yun, "Help me kill another chicken. I'll make some chicken soup and give it to Fu Niu in the evening. Boil chicken noodle soup, pick up a handful of salted cowpeas, soak them in water, and stir-fry the minced meat. Fu Niu likes to eat this with noodles." After saying that, she got busy again, making Grandma He laugh non-stop. The whole family, including the fourth wife, is a complex of contradictions. Every day I am torn between disciplining my daughter and feeling sorry for her. Every time I make a decision, it will be easily broken. Jiyan jumped back from the next door and smelled the smell of chicken soup in the yard, so she ran to hug her mother's arm and shouted, "My mother is the best. Mother, how did you know that Fu Niuer is craving for chicken noodle soup?" Tao Hongying knocked on her daughter's head and said angrily, "You came out of my belly, how can you hide anything from me? As soon as you stick your tail, I know you are going to poop." Jiyan's smiling eyes turned into crescent moons, and she put her close to her mother's hand. "Look, mother, how many excrements do I have to poop?" Tao Hongying was angry and funny. She slapped her and started to chase people away. "Stop messing around here and hurry up and write big characters. The house is busy today, are you lazy again?" Jiyan smiled to please her, squeezed into her mother's arms, and whispered, "Mom, I will go to the city with my adoptive father tomorrow." Tao Hongying stared at her at that time. She didn't want her daughter's chubby hands to directly block her mouth, and quickly added a few words, "My foster father asked me to help with the accounts. He wanted to give the money to the soldiers who died in the battle, just like the imperial court. Those high officials didn't want to give money, and the adoptive father was angry." Tao Hongying immediately grabbed her daughter's chubby hand and said angrily, What are you talking about? What do you mean the court doesn't give money? Those people died in the battle to protect the court and Tianwu, and they didn't even give money as a pension. Jiyan sighed inwardly, patted her mother's arm gently, and comforted her. Mom, don't worry, I have a foster father for everything. My adoptive father originally said that all the money earned from the shops in the home mansion and the like would be given to me. Now my adoptive father wants to use it as a pension and asked me to help with the accounting books. I guess my adoptive father is thinking that he will pay it back to me later. Fu Niuer, we can't take it. Mom knows that you like money, but I have it here. Just let him use your adoptive father's money. You know, Tao Hongying was afraid that her daughter would be ignorant, so she even took her to the room with her in her arms. Get her money box. Jiyan immediately hugged her mother's thigh. Mom, I know, I will not ask for my adoptive father's money. I know that my adoptive father has done a good thing. Tao Hongying breathed a sigh of relief. This is more or less, this is what my mother is doing, a good daughter. She patted her daughter on the back and said, let's go, Mom, go pack your things. If you're too busy, I'll stay one night at the Marquis mansion before coming back tomorrow. Don't worry, it's a big deal to help your adoptive father. Okay, Jiyan agreed with a smile, and Pei Dianer followed her mother into the house. In the yard next door, Dongmei and Yeshan were kneeling in front of the marquee and carefully explained the princess's entry into the palace. Although they were not with the princess at that time, the marquee mansion also had some people in the palace. This matter was not very confidential, so they could naturally inquire about it clearly. After saying that, both Yeshan and Dongmei kowtowed to apologize. Yeshan said, Master, please forgive me, we did not take good care of the princess. The marquis frowned and raised his hand to signal them to get up. I can't blame you for this. In the final analysis, I didn't bother to argue with some people before, which fostered their ambitions. The first time they think about it, their hands and feet should be cut off. Only by making them afraid will they not dare to despise and treat my daughter lightly. They even tremble when they hear the word Haofu. Yeshan and Dongmei lowered their heads, not daring to answer. The marquis tapped his slender fingers on the table, one after another, and it took him a long time to give two instructions. Yeshan and Dongmei immediately responded and hurried out to make arrangements. The weather was nice on the second day, and the sun was shining brightly. Yesterday, the village chief, Li Laoer, and others found a suitable location and decided to build the young people's small homes near the archway. Today, the villagers took advantage of the lack of work in the fields and orchards and began to dump stones and wood. The women in the village helped deliver herbal tea and do small tasks within their ability. Li Laoer and the village chief moved their positions again to survey the new road. They are planning to build a 4 to 5 mile path on the Zhuang side, leading directly to the hot spring valley. In this way, the new village is bypassed and the safety of the new village is ensured. Jiyan put on a beautiful dress, brought some fruits, took her adoptive father's hand, and happily went into the city. The head butler's neck was stretched out with anticipation. Desserts and various snacks had been prepared in the house early in the morning. When he finally saw the marquis and the princess arriving in front of the mansion, his face almost burst into laughter. The servants all over the house also came forward to salute, as if they were crossing the road to welcome him. The marquis gave some instructions to the steward, then patted Jiyan on the shoulder and said, You are here to check the accounts. If anyone disobeys the instructions, just do the work. The foster father will come into the palace to vent your anger. Jiyan nodded with a smile and waved his hand domineeringly. We will split up and meet at noon. Mr. Ho laughed when he heard this, rubbed the fat girl's hair and turned away. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 559. Chapter 559, Only when the pain hurts can you wake up. Perhaps it was because Marquis Inting had returned from victory and the autumn harvest was about to begin, so the emperor was in a particularly good mood these past 2 days. So, the more troublesome excerpts from the 6 parts were sent one after another, hoping that the emperor would approve them. At this moment, the Minister of Household Affairs and the Minister of Industry are both in the imperial study room. One wants to collect some money for the pension, and the other wants to beg for money. Taking advantage of the lack of rain this year, he hastily repaired the river channel. The emperor had a headache from being pestered by them. Make bricks without straw. The emperor wanted to treat the soldiers who died in the battle favorably, and also wanted to prepare for a rainy day and repair the river channel, but he was powerless because the treasury was empty. The soldiers who died in battle sacrificed their lives for the country, and they had parents at home. Tianwu cannot take the life of someone else's son and not even give him any compensation. Let's talk about rivers, which are fundamental to people's livelihood. There is little rain this year, but there may be more rain next year. To ensure the harvest, we will have to rely on river drainage. Protecting river channels means ensuring next year's harvest. Finally, seeing off 2 important ministers, the emperor couldn't even drink a sip of tea. The head cursed the 2 important ministers in his mind, but they slapped their butts and left, leaving them to face an irritable emperor, which was really a hard job. He was wondering whether to find something to make the emperor happy, or to go to the harem and invite one of the emperor's favorite concubines to put out the fire. As a result, a young came to report, "General Manager, the Marquis is here." "Master Ho is here?" The head eunuch's eyes lit up and he hurried to greet him personally. The Marquis has a badge of freedom and can enter the palace at any time without the need for communication. However, the Marquis knows the rules and always sends a young in advance to report the news when he reaches the palace gate. Moreover, the rewards are generous every time, so everyone from the chief to the younger eunuchs likes the Marquis to enter the palace. Seeing the chief come in, the Marquis cupped his hands and asked with a gentle smile, "Mr. Yi, is the emperor receiving the courtiers at the moment?" "No, no," the head bowed and replied, the smile on his face becoming more sincere. Before he entered the palace, his family name was Yi, but on weekdays, courtiers would call him father-in-law or steward when they came to meet the emperor. Few people called him by his surname like the Marquis, which made him feel respected. He took the initiative to say a few more words. "The Marquis doesn't know something. The Minister of the Ministry of Revenue and the Minister of the Ministry of Industry have just left. The Emperor is feeling worried and refuses to take a sip of the tea. It would be great for the Marquis to come over at this time. See you, Your Majesty. You will definitely be happy when you arrive." The Marquis nodded and handed over the basket in his hand. The basket contained a dozen golden cantaloupes, each as big as a palm, with a fragrant fragrance. Manager Yi was pleasantly surprised and asked, "Oh, where did Mr. Ho find the golden fruit? I heard it was out of season long ago." "The emperor said it a few days ago. The old slave specially sent people to go out to buy. I finally bought a basket. Unfortunately, the taste is far worse than the ones grown in Broken Gold Beach. The old slave didn't dare to send it to the emperor." The Marquis smiled and said, "This is what I planted in Sujintan. The old village chief was worried that I was away on an expedition and didn't get to eat this year's melons, so I planted a few ridges of late melons, which happened to be ripe at this time. Originally, I didn't think of bringing some to the emperor, but today, the princess went to the city with me when she got up early. She personally led people to the fields to pick a basket. Oh, it's no wonder that the emperor loves the princess in every way. The princess is so smart and lovable. If the emperor knows, he will be very happy." Manager Yi happily held the basket of golden fruits as if holding a basket of golden fruits. With a basket of rare treasures. Firstly, the emperor likes to eat this food, and secondly, the emperor likes the princess to really care about him. With this basket of golden fruits, whenever the emperor is in a bad mood in the past few days, if he gives him a plate, the emperor will definitely not get angry. In this way, the two of them walked all the way to the outside of the imperial study. Just as they were about to go up the steps, they saw a group of people walking out of the back hall. It was the third princess who brought two nuns and two maids. The third princess looked a little excited. It was obvious that she failed to deliver the soup last time and came here to show her courtesy this time. What a pity, she is so unlucky. As soon as she raised her head, she saw Mr. Yi and the cold-looking Marquis behind Mr. Yi. She mustered up her courage and wanted to meet the Marquis. Last time I was so rude. After returning, she had already said that she was the princess. Hoya would not be angry and would not make her. Unfortunately, it is too difficult to say this. Mr. Ho's eyes were like ice that had been frozen for thousands of years. She was so frightened that she ran away after just one look at each other. The two palace maids carrying trays were unable to escape. The trays were knocked over and the snacks spilled all over the floor. Mr. Yi frowned and shouted to the stunned nanny and maids, "What are you waiting for? Why don't you go after the princess? If the princess is good or bad, you all have to take action." The two nuns and the two maids immediately picked up their skirts and ran away after him. Manager Yi then led the Marquis up the steps. When the Marquis entered the imperial study, he quickly went to wash the golden fruits. When the emperor heard the commotion outside, he frowned and asked, "Cousin, did you meet the third princess again?" The Marquis nodded, not hiding anything, and said directly, "Maybe she bullied Funiu last time, and she felt guilty. She was afraid that I would cause trouble for her, so she would scare away when she saw me." The emperor smiled bitterly. He felt sorry for his child, but he couldn't live up to expectations. But at this point, he simply opened the door and responded, "The third princess is spoiled by the queen. I have already moved her out of Cunning Palace. Cousin, don't worry about a child." "No," the Marquis shook his head, "the princess is still young, so she can be taught more by grandma. Besides, this is a princess, not a prince. Even if she is not well taught, it will not harm the country if she has a more unruly temperament." These words may have reached the heart of the emperor, but he always felt that he let it go so lightly, unlike his cousin's temper. Just now have the Minister of Household Affairs and the Minister of Industry arrived. Seeing that there were no eunuchs or maids in the room, the Marquis spoke more casually and changed his words. The emperor sighed and responded, "Yes, they are all here to ask for money. I am like a money bag, everyone wants to take money from me." The Marquis smiled and said, "The emperor is the head of Tianwu, so naturally everyone must rely on the emperor to make decisions and distribute money." At this time, Manager Yi came in with cut golden fruits. The sweet aroma made the emperor immediately light up his eyes and asked, "Where did the golden fruit come from?" Manager Yi stepped forward, took the silver fork and handed it to the emperor. He smiled and said what the Marquis had just said. At the end, he did not forget to take credit for his help. "Your Majesty, you see, it is the princess who cares about you the most." As expected, the emperor smiled and asked Mr. Xiang, "Since you have brought Fu Niu into the city, why didn't you bring her here?" The Marquis responded, "I'll leave her to sit in the Marquis mansion and organize the account books in the past few months to see how much income the property has made, and I plan to supplement the casualty pension." The emperor immediately felt that the melon in his mouth was no longer sweet. He sighed and said, "Those soldiers died fighting for the country, and they should be generously cared for by the court. As a result, not only can't they get the pension, but you have to supplement it." The Marquis also looked gloomy and said, "I took them across the river to the north, but I didn't bring them back. I feel guilty." "Cousin, don't say that," the emperor stopped him, "even if you are guilty, it should be the old foxes in the court who are ashamed, and it should be the wealthy families who have feasted on the people's wealth and wealth. Cousin braved the rain of swords, guns, and arrows to protect Tianwu's safety. What's wrong with my cousin? The more he talked, the angrier he became. It's a shame that we can't catch all these worms. Any one of them can easily come up with these tens of thousands of taels of pension money, but they all complain about being poor and just want to see my jokes and Tianwu's jokes. The Marquis didn't look angry at all. He took a sip of tea and said calmly, "For some people, kind words are useless. Only when the pain hurts can you become sober." The emperor's heart skipped a beat and he looked up at Manager Yi. Manager Yi immediately retreated and stood guard outside the door himself. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 560. Chapter 560, A Plan to Remove the Firepower from the Bottom of the Cauldron. The Emperor and the Marquis were the only ones left in the room for a while. The Emperor immediately asked, "Cousin, tell me, is there any good way to bleed these wealthy families?" The Marquis smiled and replied, "I didn't have much idea at first, but I heard something on the way here, which gave me some inspiration." "What's the matter?" "Cousin, tell me quickly," the Emperor asked, not even bothering to eat the melon. The Marquis asked, "Have you heard, Your Majesty, that the eldest son of the Duke of Genkuo was jealous in a brothel the day before yesterday and beat a wealthy businessman to death for a poor man?" The Emperor nodded, "I heard about it, but the Duke of Genkuo's mansion has a long-term follower to take the blame." The Marquis smiled and said, "Your Majesty, the country has national laws and the family has family rules. Who killed the person? How can we let the Duke's office have the final say? Even if Zheng Qiuagong only has an only son, he must be sent to Jingzhiyin for a clear investigation. If Duke Zhen is really distressed, he will come to the palace to ask for your mercy. If you understand Duke Zhen's love for his son, Duke Zhen will naturally also understand how difficult it is for you, Tianwu, to be a family member, right?" The Emperor blinked his eyes twice and understood immediately. This is to seize the tail of the Duke of Zhen's only son and rob the Duke of Zhen's mansion in an open and honest manner. The Duke of Zhenguo has been hereditary for 4 generations. Although the population is not prosperous, he is still very rich thanks to his ancestors' service as a dragon and the ancestral property accumulated over many years. Let alone tens of thousands of taels of silver, hundreds of thousands of taels are not a problem. The emperor already has thousands of consents in his heart, but as an emperor, he must still have the face he deserves. He coughed twice and said, "When a prince breaks the law, he is guilty of the same crime as the common people. When the only son of the prince commits a crime, he must be punished. But if this is the case, will the wealthy family be in mourning and cause turmoil in the south of the Yangtze River?" "No," the Marquis shook his head, "the Duke of Guo's mansion shares the emperor's worries, and it is reasonable for the emperor to grant him a pardon. In addition, I heard that the eldest son of the Duke of Guo's mansion likes the legitimate daughter of the second wife of the Marquis of Jiangning, even to the point of obsession. Your Majesty, if the marriage can be granted by decree, I am afraid that the Duke's palace will be even more grateful to the emperor." "The legitimate daughter of the second wife of Jiangning Ho mansion?" The emperor didn't react for a moment, and he really didn't know whether to laugh or cry when he had to wait to figure it out. "It turns out that my cousin is waiting for me here. The queen has always wanted to marry this cousin to you, but you have held the red string for me." The Marquis raised his hand to pour the tea, hid the coldness in his eyes, and replied, "I said that until the barbarians are exterminated and half the country is recovered, I will never have a family. Therefore, it is not good to drag other girls to wait until they are old. What's more, I have a daughter. Fu Niuer is filial, and even if I don't have a biological child, Fu Niuer will take care of me until I die." The emperor had no good impression of the Wu family, and he was unwilling to go against his cousin's wishes, just to make the queen and the Wu family happy. What's more, If the daughter of the Wu family is given a marriage to the prince of the Duke of Guo, a large amount of money can be exchanged for the national treasury, which can also solve the pension problem. Thinking of this, he smiled and said, "This is not bad. It not only solves the emptiness of the national treasury, but also solves the problem of the Wu family's daughter's desire to marry. It can be said to kill two birds with one stone." Unfortunately, what the Marquis wanted to achieve was far more than that. He asked again, "Is the emperor satisfied now? No money is needed to repair the river." The emperor was shocked at that time and asked, "Cousin, are you still trying to squeeze money from the duke's mansion?" Mr. Ho shook his head and said with a smile, "Of course not. Even if you cut meat, you can't always cut it from a pig." The emperor looked strange when he heard this. My cousin used to be such an unsmiling person, but now he speaks so down to earth. Have you lived in Broken Gold Beach for a long time? The Marquis didn't know what he was thinking, so he took out a soldier's booklet from his arms and said, "This expedition has caused heavy casualties, so we must replenish our troops. Tianwu is the Tianwu of the common people, and it is also the Tianwu of the wealthy families and the civil and military officials of the Manchu dynasty. It makes no sense, just let the common people send their children and grandchildren to kill the barbarians, but the powerful and wealthy families stand behind and watch the fun. So, I propose that the soldiers this time be selected from the young children of each family. Each family must have 2 children, and there must be legitimate sons. In this way, each family will be more concerned about regaining the mountains and rivers, and will be more dedicated to the battle. Difficulties are more understandable." The tea bowl in the emperor's hand tilted and he almost spilled the tea. Yesterday in the court, all the civil and military officials and wealthy families were watching the pension issue. He, the emperor, felt chilled and angry just looking at him, let alone his cousin, who must have been furious. But he didn't expect that his cousin actually wanted to grill all the courtiers and dignitaries of Tianwu. Taking the fire out of the cauldron. Snake hit 7 inches. This is to grab the necks of all the wealthy families and tie them all to the chariot for the northern expedition. They may not care about the lives of ordinary soldiers, but they cannot ignore the life and death of their own bloodline. I'm afraid this will offend the public. Will my cousin really want to be a lonely minister in the future? The emperor objected. "Cousin, you can't do this. You should think of other ways." The Marquis smiled nonchalantly and said, "Don't worry, Your Majesty, we don't necessarily require those children from aristocratic families to enlist in the army. If they learn to act like a duke, and understand that the emperor is worried about the empty treasury, then it would be better to send only one to enlist. As for them being angry, let them be angry. When I vowed to regain the mountains and rivers and exterminate the barbarians, I already put everything aside. Whether it is the courtiers or the powerful, it makes no difference whether they hate me or respect me. As long as the emperor believes in me, I have nothing to fear. Cousin, I don't trust anyone, but I will trust you." The emperor's heart was burning. There were too many things he wanted to say, but they were all stuck in his throat. As an emperor, you must not have human tenderness. Because even his wife and children could not guarantee that one day they would kill him for the chair under his buttocks. But he was so lucky to have such a cousin who grew up with him. When he was too weak to fight against everyone, his cousin brought secret guards, always walking on the edge of life and death, collecting intelligence for him and handling some matters that could not be seen in the light. Now that he has taken charge of the government and has the capital to compete with some people, his cousin has begun to lead troops to fight again to regain half of the fallen country for him. Now he is solving the problem of the emptiness of the treasury for him, and using his own strength to shoulder all the dignitaries of the aristocratic families. Seeing the emperor's eyes were red, the Marquis sighed and laughed softly. "Why are you still like you were when you were a child? I don't have any pine nut candies to coax you." The emperor also smiled, with a hint of nostalgia in his smile. When he was a child, his mother-in-law died early. At that time, the favored concubine and the queen gave birth to a prince. Naturally, the late emperor did not care about this poor little boy and wished that the palace maids and eunuchs could bully him at will. At that time, my cousin's parents and relatives all died from the epidemic, and only my cousin was left. He deliberately knelt on the road where his father must pass, and asked his father for permission to send his cousin to the palace to be his companion. My cousin can leave the palace once every half-month, so I will secretly bring him pine nut candies. When he was bullied and was unable to fight back, and was angry and sad, his cousin would secretly take him to a corner to talk. He eats sweets while his cousin practices martial arts. Even after so long, it seems like everything is still in front of you. In the past few years, he has been in charge, and some people have begun to stand up and be used by him. His cousin is not the only one around him, he even sees his cousin only once every few months. Occasionally, he would also doubt whether his cousin had hidden selfish motives, and whether he was like the courtiers who wanted something from him and concealed something. But at this moment, he suddenly felt extremely ashamed. The cousin is still the same cousin, but he is already a qualified emperor. The emperor took a deep breath and said, "Cousin, you don't have to be like this. I am the emperor of Tianwu, and I should do such things. As you said, Tianwu is my Tianwu, the Tianwu of the people, and the Tianwu of the people. There is no reason for the ministers and the powerful Tianwu to just sit back and watch." End of this chapter.